6.26 on apartments. We put in, when I was there, procedure for determining whether or not a basement apartment was a legal use, and had all the steps we went through to make that determination. Very fair, very objective, and very transparent. I mentioned before, you're going to have some complaints that this is hard on the elderly or people who are disabled. One that I've heard a lot about this last year is snow shoveling rules. Our city adopted rules that said you've got to clean off the sidewalk within X number of hours after the snow stops. And inevitably, there's some people who don't have the capacity to do that. The city has found other helpers who can take care of it. There is some debate about whether or not the city should go in and take care of those things on their nickel. Again, that's a judgment that each entity has to decide. But there are ways to solve that problem. Another one is, what's your own property look like? It's funny how once government becomes a property owner, it behaves like most other property owners. Doesn't mow the lawn every day or every week like they should. Or doesn't cut the weeds like they're expecting everyone else to do. So local government or government-owned property ought to be the best example of your rules. And if it's too hard for you to go cut the weeds twice every summer, then why in the heck are you expecting everybody else to be doing that? There's another thing I found very useful over the years. Regular reports to the legislative body. Because you know what? Otherwise, they hear about the tough cases. People are complaining, and they think that the whole world is a tough case. They don't realize that 98% of the cases are being handled and being closed on a regular basis. They think that the tough case represents the way you do business. That if you report quarterly or monthly or some regular time, how many cases have been opened, how many cases have been closed this reporting period, how many cases have been open longer than a certain time? Let's just pick arbitrarily, longer than 6 months. That means it's a hard case. What's the status of the top 10 toughest cases you have? Now, this could be a confidential report where the attorney's office sends the council an attorney-client privileged communication that says, here's where we are, here's our strategy, we've been to court 10 times and the court continued it for the umpteenth time. I can think of a particular case that I'm aware of that's probably 7 or 8 years old. Very frustrating. It takes a long time sometimes to pursue these cases. Maybe they need to be settled. But if you report what's going on to your legislators, they can in turn speak intelligently and accurately to their constituents about what's going on. Otherwise, you're dealing in rumor, sometimes assumptions that can be incorrect. The other big advantage of reporting is government transparency. The citizens know that this government is serious about enforcing it. Again, it's not an overzealous program, because everyone will have to decide to what degree you're willing to do this, or any level of enforcement. But once you've decided, then the citizens know this is happening on a regular basis. It's very objective. And you'll make believers out of people who might otherwise tend to blow you off. I mean, I hear regularly people who say, don't worry about it. They're not going to do anything. Just do it. You don't need to get a building permit. Just do it. Forgiveness is easier than permission. Right? We've heard that one. Cost recovery, I've kind of mentioned that as well. You can make responsible people pay for or be responsible for the cost of enforcement. At what point you begin to make them responsible, you can decide. You want to charge them on day one, I suppose you can do that. But my view would be to not have the heavy hand of government coming down right at the beginning. Give people an opportunity to get right with the government, help them understand the rules. Okay, I mentioned these other things. One other one, use separate fund accounting. Create an abatement fund. Abatement is a certain procedure under the Utah code. I haven't dealt with that too much, but if you're going to do abatement, you'd be well advised and check with the attorney's office to make sure you follow the appropriate procedure for abatement. And many things can be abated, meaning the government, if the individual doesn't clean it up, the government can go clean it up or take care of it and charge the individual for the cost of the service and recover it via court action or lien or something of that nature. Okay, and here's the resources. I mentioned a few of these things. These cities have, that I've listed here, Midvale, Provost, and the county, Summit County, and West Valley City, have administrative enforcement program ordinances. They're all pretty much identical, but not absolutely identical. If you're inclined to do something like this, I would not adopt it without having your attorney review it and understand it and make sure that it makes sense and it's appropriate. But these are good models to begin from. And then the case law talks about some of the principles that I mentioned. So with that, Johnny, I think we're done unless anyone has questions you want to now ask. Okay. Thank you all very much.